from 1881. So enjoy as we take you on a tour through Dr. Gerson's birthplace here in Poland. And I'll give you a little bit of anecdotal history of Dr. Gerson's life, which was given to me personally by Dr. Gerson's last living daughter, Charlotte, when I lived with her 20 years ago at her home in San Diego. And as we were sitting around her dining room table, she shared some great anecdotal history of her father's life. So sit back and enjoy this brief video as we take you through the incredible life of Dr. Max Gerson, who Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Albert Schweitzer called one of the most eminent geniuses in medical history. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, here we are in Wagrowiec, Poland, where back in October 18th, 1881, Dr. Max Gerson was born. Now, I lived with Charlotte Gerson, Dr. Gerson's last living daughter, at her home in San Diego 20 years ago, where I spent 2 months going through Dr. Gerson's handwritten files that she's kept in his garage up until this day. And when we were sitting at the dining room table one evening, Charlotte went on to tell me a lot of anecdotal history of her father's life. So being born here in 1881, when he graduated from high school, you had to pass an exit exam to go on to university. And on his exit exam, his calculus professor put a question on there that he'd never seen before. But he managed to come up with such an elaborate solution that even his calculus professor couldn't tell him whether it was right or wrong. So she sent it around to all the top university professors in math at that time. And they all wrote back saying that they have a mathematical genius in their country. And they all tried to recruit him for math. And when this took place, Dr. Gerson's family, obviously he wasn't a doctor at that point, he was just coming out of school. But his family got together at their home one evening. Mother, father, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, they all got together to discuss what Dr. Gerson would do and study when he went to university. And they all agreed that he should study medicine because they felt that's where he would have the greatest impact on humanity. And here we are, nearly 18 years later, talking about the man who, for all intents and purposes, came up with the cure for cancer and virtually every single degenerative disease. And not one other therapy in the history of medicine can rival the statistics and the success with which Dr. Gerson was able to reverse advanced terminal disease. So when he left high school, he went and studied medicine at the University of Freiburg. And when he was studying medicine, he was suffering from severe migraine headaches. And these were the top professors in Germany at the time that were teaching Dr. Gerson medicine, and they could do nothing for him. So Dr. Gerson set out to cure himself of his own migraine headaches by changing his diet. He eliminated all the salt, sweet, fats of the standard German diet of that time, which is the standard world diet of today. And Dr. Gerson cured himself of his advanced migraine headaches. So when he graduated from the University of Freiburg, he went and opened practice in Bielefeld, Germany. And while he was practicing, he began using his migraine diet on his patients, when one of them came back completely cured of their skin tuberculosis. So he started curing skin tuberculosis and treating skin tuberculosis and other tuberculosis patients. Well, a man by the name of Ferdinand Sauerbruch, who was Europe's leading thoracic surgeon at that time, he heard that this man was reversing advanced tuberculosis. And he approached Dr. Gerson privately and asked him to embark on a study of 460 tuberculosis patients. Now you have to understand that at this time, tuberculosis was ravaging throughout Europe, killing over 1 million people. And so Ferdinand Sauerbruch said to Dr. Gerson, if you cure but one case of these tuberculosis patients, I'll believe every single word you have to say. So together they embarked on a study of 460 tuberculosis patients, and Dr. Gerson cured 450 out of the 460 tuberculosis patients. Shortly thereafter, Hitler came to power. Now, Gerson and his family, it's my understanding they were Hungarian Jews from what I remember with my conversations with Charlotte. And they were displaced from Hungary and sent to Poland when Poland was occupied by Germany at the time. Well, when Hitler came to power, Dr. Gerson lost his entire family in the Holocaust. And he himself nearly escaped death when the SS officers stopped his train when he was en route to Vienna, Austria to give a lecture on tuberculosis. The SS army entered the train and they were asking it for people's IDs, looking for any Jews that might be on that train. And when they entered Dr. Gerson's car and his particular cabin, he was there with one other man. And when the German officer entered Dr. Gerson's car, his cabin, he asked the other man for his ID, which the man obliged. In the meantime, Dr. Gerson knew what was happening, and he frantically took out 2 x-rays of a post and a pre-x-ray of a tuberculosis patient that he had cured. And when the officer turned to Dr. Gerson and asked him for his ID, Dr. Gerson had both of those x-rays up in the light as if he was studying them and looking at them. And the officer asked him what he was doing. And he said he was on his way to Vienna to give a lecture because he had cured tuberculosis and would be lecturing to medical doctors on how he cured these tuberculosis patients. So shocked was the German officer because, like I said, tuberculosis was ravaging Europe at that time. So shocked was the German officer that he completely forgot to ask Dr. Gerson for his ID. And Dr. Gerson narrowly escaped death on his way to Vienna, Austria. And then right after he returned from Vienna, he packed up his family, his wife Margaret, Charlotte, and his other 2 daughters, and immediately escaped to France. And then from France, Dr. Gerson made his way to the United States, where he set up practice on Park Avenue in Manhattan, New York. Ironically and literally right around the corner from Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is one of the largest research hospitals and organizations in the world. In fact, Dr. C. Sloan, who founded Sloan Kettering, is noted as saying that Dr. Gerson was a notable quack. A notable quack. Notable because Dr. Gerson was reversing virtually every single disease between 1910 and 1959 when he died. So here we are, and it's such a great honor to be here at Dr. Gerson's birthplace in Wagrowiec, Poland. So enjoy the rest of this short video as we take you around the city and the town, and hopefully we'll get a chance to actually interview the spokesperson for the mayor, who's actually written articles for the local newspaper on Dr. Max Gerson. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Gerson was reversing advanced tuberculosis with the migraine diet that he discovered, curing himself of migraine headaches. He went on to cure tuberculosis and treat various other degenerative diseases with this diet for decades. He didn't realize that he could cure advanced terminal cancer until a woman that heard that Dr. Gerson was in her area, who was dying of advanced stomach, gallbladder, and liver cancer, approached Dr. Gerson and asked him to give her his treatment for tuberculosis. Dr. Gerson refused. He refused because even at that time he understood the political nature of treating these diseases with nutrition. But this woman continually came to approach him and beg him for his treatment. After the 4th or 5th time, Dr. Gerson finally agreed that he would treat her, but that he would treat her in secret. and he ended up curing her of her advanced cancer using his migraine and tuberculosis treatment. It was at this time that Dr. Gerson said that he could no longer turn his face away from this deadly scourge of cancer, and he dedicated the rest of his life to treating this advanced terminal disease that has become epidemic in our society today. In 1946, the Pepper-Neely anti-cancer bill came to the floor of the United States Senate. It was designed to appropriate $100 million in funding to anybody who could show promise in the realm of cancer research. Well, by this time, Dr. Gerson's name had started to get around that he was a man reversing advanced terminal cancer. So July 1st through the 3rd, 1946, Dr. Gerson was asked to come and testify before the United States Senate for this Pepper-Neely anti-cancer bill. Dr. Gerson brought 5 of his most terminally ill cancer patients that he'd ever had, and all 5 walked through Senate chambers doors and testified that Dr. Gerson had cured them of their advanced terminal cancer. So shocked was everybody in Senate chambers doors that day that Senator Claude Pepper himself, who sponsored the bill, said Dr. Gerson dedicated his life to the mastery of this scourge of cancer, and all should honor his great work. Well, what happened? Because here we are now, 70 years removed from when Dr. Gerson testified, and still there's no cure for cancer, or so they say. After Dr. Gerson's testimony, he was supposed to give an interview to the international press. So he was whisked away to the international press room. But the international press never showed up. They were whisked away to another room, and an impromptu party was thrown on their behalf. Dr. Gerson never got to tell the world about his treatment and cure for advanced cancer. Shortly after that testimony, Dr. Gerson became a marked man. A man who should have received all recognition and probably should have won the Nobel Prize in Medicine himself, became the most ostracized man in medicine. He was ostracized and destroyed by his colleagues. He lost his membership to the New York State Medical Society. He was then prohibited from publishing in all major medical journals around the world. When Dr. Gerson, up until that point, was one of the most published men in the history of medicine, having published articles in the top medical journals around the world up until roughly 1952, 1953, somewhere in that time frame. But from that point on, up until his death in 1959, Dr. Max Gerson was prohibited from sharing his treatment with his colleagues and the rest of the world, being denied the recognition that he should have deserved, having accomplished what no man has really accomplished to date. But here we are in Wagrowiec, Poland, where Dr. Gerson was born. And behind me here, you can see this is the mayor's office. The mayor and his spokesperson, who's written articles about Dr. Gerson for the local newspaper, give Dr. Gerson the recognition that he truly deserved. If you were to go into the mayor's office here in Wagrowiec, Poland, and ask about Dr. Gerson, he's affectionately referred to as the famous doctor that came from Wagrowiec, Poland. The people here of this town, they know who Dr. Gerson is. They're one of the only people who know about the legacy that Dr. Gerson left behind up until his death in 1959. So I hope with this little piece that you've seen today, you can understand the incredible odds that Dr. Gerson had to face as a medical doctor who was treating and reversing advanced terminal disease using nutrition and detoxification. He was a marked man. He would have obliterated a pharmaceutical and medical industry that you and I have come to know as one of the biggest monsters on the planet, one of the biggest money-making schemes that man has ever known. Well, as promised, I told you I would be here and hopefully get a chance to mention and speak with a member of the mayor's office. And I have here with me Peter Karpowski, who is the spokesperson for the mayor's office. And he is the one who actually published a story, I believe, in the local newspaper about Dr. Gerson and his life here, which Dr. Gerson lived here between 1881 and what we derived from this brochure, 1902. So he was essentially here for 21 years of his life. And this is the official tourism brochure for the city. And if you open it up, lo and behold, who do we have right here? We have Dr. Max Gerson, and a little bit about Dr. Gerson's life here in this town up until those dates that I'd mentioned. So we're here with Peter, and we've been chatting for about a half hour now, about Dr. Gerson and his life, and he's the one who did the research on Dr. Gerson. And if there's anything that he can add to Dr. Gerson's legacy and work, he did it here in this town and inspired a town to understand who Dr. Gerson was and the legacy he left behind with his therapy. And we were here just recently, about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Walking down the street, we decided to talk with an older lady who was with her granddaughter sitting on a bench. And we mentioned what we were doing here, visiting the town, and we started talking about Dr. Gerson and Dr. Gerson's work. And she said, oh yes, I do remember hearing about this doctor that came from our hometown that was poisoned for what he knew and having reversed terminal cancer, and he was murdered for that purpose. So even the lady sitting on a bench knew the life and the history of Dr. Gerson, and more than likely due to Peter's work that he published in the newspaper here. So Peter, it's been a great pleasure to sit and talk with you, and this is fantastic. This is going up at my clinic. We're going to put it up on the wall along with this picture right here that you shared with us, a picture of which used to be a postcard, and it is a very high probability that this building right here, or that building right there, excuse me, that building right there was formerly the family business of the Gerson family on the bottom floor, and the residence of Dr. Gerson's family on the top floor. It was eventually sold off. Dr. Gerson's father sold off that property and that business to a Polish man who then converted it into his business. But this was an official postcard, I believe, at one point, and this could have potentially been Dr. Gerson's personal residence and his father's business on the lower floor. So it's been quite an experience. Like I said in the beginning, this is a very special day for me, and it's just nice to be able to share it with somebody who's equally passionate about Dr. Gerson's work. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you. And so long from Wagrowiec, Poland. And then there was a building here.
There was also, right?